Psychologists, therapists, counselors, etc. What are some things people tend to think are normal but should really be checked out? Story 1. A good rule of thumb as to whether a behavior or symptom should be checked out is the same one we use to determine a diagnosable disorder, if it causes impairment in one or more areas of life. The range of what is normal is huge, but if something keeps you from going to school or work, keeps you from maintaining basic hygiene, from maintaining your friendships and familiar relationships, romantic relationships, it's causing impairment and you should seek help. This is not an exhaustive criterion for diagnosable mental illness. There are many criteria we consider in diagnosing, but the one criterion that is present for all is that it must cause impairment. Enjoyment is also an important aspect of functioning. If you're getting by in your life but are miserable, get help. You don't have to live like that. Serial killers and sociopaths represent a very small percentage of the population and rarely seek help willingly. This was not directed at them. The areas of functioning I listed are general examples pulled from the Western culture where I live and was trained. Different cultures have different values, and the norms of your culture should be taken into account. If you're unbothered by your level of functioning in these areas relative to cultural expectations, good for you. Most people considering this advice likely have a sense that something is not where they want it to be in their life and are looking for confirmation that it's bad enough to seek help. If you're not concerned, my advice is not directed at you. No one is saying that being content with having no interpersonal connections is inherently pathological. Story 2. There have been a lot of my patients who have been pretty surprised when I've told them, hey, that's anxiety and depression, when they just thought their behaviors were typical for everyone. Not being able to maintain friendships, constantly being nervous about the safety of your child to the point where you hate being alone with your child without your partner. Not being able to motivate yourself to do things, especially things you once enjoyed. Feeling excessively tired all the time. Not being able to calm down and just thinking about the same thoughts over and over and feeling worried. Other things we can help with: having a hard time trusting others, trying to recover a relationship from infidelity, not knowing why your kid is misbehaving so much and needing guidance. Helping to improve communication within your relationships. Now, if you experience these things and more, therapists can help. Let us help you. Story 3. I've seen a lot of people dismiss their depression and other mental illness because it's quote unquote not that bad. Other people have it worse, or I can and should be able to handle it on my own. You shouldn't have to suffer from mental illness even if you technically can. You deserve to be happy, and therapists and psychiatrists are there to help you learn how to help yourself. It's not a weakness to find someone who can assist you in figuring out coping skills or prescribe you medications to help fine-tune your brain's neurotransmitters. Story 4. The need for some parents to speak with their children about adult problems. No, your young child does not need to be aware that you are struggling financially or that daddy slept with the lady next door. The parents tell their children that they're going to go and speed my car into a tree purposely, kill myself while you were at school, or slit my wrist when I showered tonight. And parents feeling that they need their children quote unquote fixed, as it's the child and not the family unit as a whole that needs support and or assistance. Just a few recent ones I've heard. Story 5. Psychotherapist here. Some things I see regularly that could have been caught earlier before they became a problem. Unhealthy coping mechanisms. For example, drinking to quote-unquote relax frequently or smoking a lot. Even something like promiscuity can be a red flag that a person is trying to avoid dealing with something stressful by distracting themselves. Self-harm. Hitting yourself, banging your head on things, burning yourself on purpose, cutting yourself, etc. All of these things indicate that it's time to talk with a professional. Quote-unquote normal child and teen behaviors that are not actually normal, like running away or getting into fights. Not communicating. When this happens, something is usually wrong. Not always, as some folks are quieter than others. But if a child or teen or adult rarely speaks, or if they are silent in the presence of their parent or significant other, it's time to get them to see a professional alone to have their safety assessed. I've seen individuals who are literally shut down due to having been profoundly abused by the people they live with, and one of the main signs of that is silence. I've also seen people in perfectly good homes who cannot communicate due to extreme anxiety, and without professional help, it's hard for them to overcome this. And finally, mood swings. When a person's moods change from one extreme to another fairly often and regularly, that is another concerning symptom. Sometimes they're considered eccentric or hormonal, but that sort of thing can be a sign of many problems from bipolar disorder to post traumatic stress disorder. Story 6. Extreme emotions, lack or struggle with impulse control, blackouts, extreme irritability, disrupted sleep, muted or bottled emotions, feeling like an alien, feeling like everyone has an ulterior motive, self isolation, preoccupation with pleasing others or avoiding conflict, feeling of emptiness, feeling like a part of your identity is missing or you don't have an identity of your own. Subtle tendencies to latch on to others, especially romantic partners or crushes. Maybe sometimes you feel like you're just a tad too much, or maybe you've heard that from some exes. Went to school for forensic psychology before I had to drop out due to my own unchecked mental illness. Turns out my worldview has been wrong my whole life, and I thought everyone was like this because my family members were like this. Even though I was in and out of therapy my whole life for depression and anxiety, nobody spotted the BPD, borderline personality disorder, because I didn't know these feelings needed to be talked about. Never caught the borderline until my head became such a dangerous place I wasn't sure I'd ever function again or be able to have the relationships I craved with my loved ones. Another example is my partner. He's always had muted emotions, not a lot of expressed passion about the things he likes or believes are important. Not even enough to vote before we got together. Most people with SPD, sensory processing disorder, will feel this detachment and think it's fine, but they can be really struggling and not know why or even not know that there's a problem, like heart disease. I won't lie that in some cases, having schizoid is almost encouraged, work of nearly every kind. However, it very seriously impacts the quality of life for the person, sometimes making them feel like they have no place in this world. Story 7. Tech here, so the bottom of the totem pole, yeah, but I'll offer my opinion. Normal is not the right qualifier in my opinion. Psychology isn't like physiology where you can go in and they can run exploratory tests on you to find out you are sick in a way that hasn't manifested symptoms yet. That's why your doctor will screen you for certain common or devastating disorders. The way I learned about mental illness was through the 4Ds: dysfunction, deviation, distress, and danger. Dysfunction means it gets in the way of you doing your job, school, or whatever. Deviation means it's not something everyone is going through. Distress means you're not okay with it. Danger is self explanatory. You come in with some or all of the 4Ds, and we form a treatment based on a set of symptoms that you most closely match. Then we treat the symptoms. The point of all of this is to say mental illness exists on a spectrum where one end may be so subtle that it only informs a person's personality, whereas the other end is completely debilitating and can get a person killed. You may know someone with features of an illness. In fact, it'd be surprised if you didn't. But if they don't want or need treatment, then they shouldn't be diagnosed. The best example is autism. Someone high on the functionality side of autism will do quite well in life. In fact, it is actually quite fair to discuss if autistic people live better lives than their counterparts. The answer would be entirely based on what you value in a quote-unquote good life. The next group of people is objectively suffering from their condition. They may have a chemical imbalance in their brain that causes them to be more anxious or sad than their counterparts. However, if it doesn't have enough impact on that individual, then they may go on their entire lives without really needing to be checked out. Now, to answer your question, if someone feels like their life would benefit from the field of psychology, then they need to get checked out. The hurdle that professionals face is educating people on what kinds of things psychology can help with. But for fun, let's take a look at some qualities you can have that are too extreme and what diagnosis that may relate to. Too much energy, mania; too little, depression. Too much trust, borderline personality disorder, BPD; too little, paranoia, also BPD. Too much self-esteem, narcissistic personality disorder; too little, depression. Too much fear, anxiety; too little, mania. Too many activities of daily living, OCD; too little, anhedonia, psychosis. Too much sex, BPD; too little, anhedonia. Too much memory, trauma; too little, dementia, Alzheimer's, psychosis. Too much interaction, hyperverbal; too little, isolation, catatonia. That is just to say that many different extremes of certain traits can be a symptom. However, you do have to make sure it is abnormal for that person. Not everyone who doesn't like people is clinically isolative. Not everyone who has lots of sex with multiple partners is hypersexual, and not everyone who doesn't brush their teeth is depressed. It takes no time at all to learn the symptoms of different disorders. The rest of the time at school will be spent finding out how to tell if those traits are a symptom or just who that person is, and of course, what to do about it. Often the question of why is important in mental illness. Not participating in something you used to love may be anhedonia, or you may just have lost interest. Your medical doctor should never have to ask you why you have swollen lymph nodes. Your therapist should absolutely ask you why you want to get a divorce. He cheated on me is not a symptom, but he's not my husband anymore. He's an imposter that looks like my husband, but he is an Al Qaeda spy sent to kill me, most likely. Story 8. I am a very specific psychologist. I'm a research psychologist and my area is maternal infant health. So I'm not sure how helpful this is, but we truly do not have a great understanding of what a physiologically normal postpartum mental health experience is versus a pathological one, except on the extreme end. So if you're having thoughts of harming yourself or others, including your baby, that is a pathological postpartum experience. I've met with women who went and told they had PPD because they were looking forward to going back to work or were suggested to take medication because they reported feeling overwhelmed. I've also had women who were told it was normal to feel unmotivated, detached from the world, or isolated for months after giving birth because that was just adjusting to motherhood. Perceptions of normal and not normal postpartum well-being vary wildly, and this makes promoting postpartum well-being really difficult. So my advice is this. Some amount of distress probably is normal. It's a huge life change, a huge physical toll, and a huge shift in hormones. But if that distress is distressing to you, there are likely many, many different strategies for helping alleviate it, including medication when indicated. I would also say that postpartum anxiety is something that I actually tend to see are more commonly normalized or not diagnosed. Chronic, persistent, debilitating worry about your infant is not normal, but frankly, we've socialized it to be an indicator of quote unquote good mothering, even if it decreases overall quality of life. Story 9. I'll turn this on a specific path. I'm a school psychologist. When your child is in school and having difficulty with learning, remembering, and applying the information consistently, everyone is expected to have challenging classes or subjects, but failing repeatedly despite significant efforts might need a different kind of support. Special education teachers can make magic happen. When your child's behavior requires constant monitoring, extensive reinforcement is dangerous or difficult to predict, harmful to others, explosive, or highly disruptive on a frequent basis, the school will likely be contacting you, and you need to work with them for the best interest of your child. We have behavior analysts. When your child does not seem to hear you when you call their name, I mean not ignoring, or react to loud noises, get their hearing checked. The same thing for vision. Make sure you get it checked regularly. Glasses, go to school. Hearing aids, go to school. We have hearing and vision specialists that come into the school. When your child has a hard time understanding you, following directions, responding with logical and connected thoughts, skipping keywords, speech and language therapists do great things. We even use iPads and pictures to communicate with kids who need them. Dressing, handwriting, using scissors, sensory, sensitivity, etc. That's what occupational therapy is for. Walking and climbing stairs, supporting their bodies in a chair, jumping, running, and any movement. That's when we call in the physical therapist. Begging, dragging, pulling, and fighting your child to go to school every day is not normal. It could be that it's too difficult, socially challenging, has high levels of anxiety or depression, and a plethora of other factors. Most importantly, all mental health issues are able to be helped in the school. We have social workers, mental health counselors, psychologists, behavioral health workers, school and guidance counselors, social skills teachers, and more. We run groups, work on school avoidance, help build friendships, teach coping strategies, and calm kids down when they need it. Remember that the longer a kid avoids school, the harder it will be to get them back in. Don't give in, but get them in and plan with the school. Get outside help if the task is too great. Bullying is dangerous. Physical fighting is dangerous. Self-harm is dangerous. Suicidal ideation and drug use, they're dangerous too. The school needs to know in order to protect your child and the family. We care and can help. Hiding or avoiding never helps. We have student assistant programs, outside resources, mobile crisis units, and an endless list of ways to support. Never, ever, ever leave a child with suicidal thoughts or intentions alone. When they say, go directly to the hospital, no matter what you think. People often look and act better right before they attempt because they feel relief that they're going to go through with it. I'm sure I'm missing things, but you get the gist. Not every school is amazing, but most have ways of helping that parents don't even know about. Labels have good parts and bad parts, but we use them to identify, communicate, tailor interventions, and properly treat. Schools are not just for reading, writing, and math, they are community centers for all aspects of your life. You are your child's first teacher, and they're one for life. Story 10. This is a hard question because, first and foremost, we have to determine whether in a specific scenario, normal equals healthy or normal does not equal healthy. Depression is a normal emotion, but the prolonged depression that manifests and interferes severely with your life isn't. Procrastination is normal. Procrastinating to the point that you do nothing else isn't normal. Doing something you enjoy is normal. Becoming destructively addicted to something you enjoy isn't normal. There are many, many things people do normally that could be considered problematic. Self deprecation, preoccupation with insecurities, etc., are common examples. Determining whether something needs to be checked out by a professional is a whole new evaluation. Severity and strength of the individual and environmental factors almost always determine this. The most universal trope I've noticed is the preoccupation with minor insecurities. Basing hours of thought every day on how you hate being 5'6" isn't healthy. Story 11. One thing is when everyone around you seems to be mistreating you. If they always seem to make you sad, disregard your wants and emotions, or be rude and look down on you. Your friends, your family, your workmates, the woman at the shop, everyone mistreats you. This is an interesting thing because it can signify two very different things. It could either mean that you are in a very difficult situation which you might need help getting out of, or it is actually you who interprets things in a certain way and acting according to that interpretation, which you might need help to break out of. Either way, it's probably a good idea to get it checked out. Story 12. Master's level licensed professional counselor, specialty is addiction and substance use disorders. First, an inability to identify and then express matters from the self is not healthy. Prefer using term instead of normal. For example, saying, "You made me mad," instead of "Yesterday when I was telling you about my day, I felt invalidated and hurt because I didn't feel you were present with me and listening." Second, everyone has trauma to some degree. The extent to which it impacts our life is much different. Trauma can be viewed as the internal response to unhealthy external or perceived events. This means the absence of good can be trauma just as much as the presence of bad. A family without love, in my view, is equally traumatic as one with the presence of abuse because of what it does to the person. Thirdly, the amount of sexual abuse that the people I work with has blown my mind. It is not healthy for 6-year-old boys to play with each other sexually, and it's not healthy for little girls to always sit on uncle or daddy's lap. Self-exploration and curiosity are healthy. Someone else exploring you or exploiting you is not. Lastly, don't hesitate to ask questions from a qualified and ethical professional, but also don't just accept what they say as accurate and true. We're people too, and not everyone in this field has done their work or should be in this field. Look around, ask questions, and whatever you do, please do not wait until things get worse. Thanks for taking the time to read this. Hope it helps. Story 13. Registered psychologist here. One thing that I see often, and this are more to do with cases of infidelity and breach of trust, is when they allow their partner to walk all over them. One thing that I typically hear often is, "But I love him or her." And over time, they allow themselves to just write it off rather than see the situation for what it really is. I'm not saying that nobody makes mistakes. We're human and everybody is going to screw up a time or two in their life. I certainly know that I have. But when you accept other chronic behaviors from your partner and you refuse to either call them out on it or stand up for yourself, it breeds extremely unhealthy self-esteem issues. You have to learn to stick up for yourself because, well, at the end of the day, you are in charge of your own life, nobody else. Story 14. Not a doctor, nor a patient, but reading all the stories made me realize how much less interesting my life is nowadays. I want the day to end. When I'm studying, my mind is elsewhere, and I can't sit for 30 or 40 minutes without checking my mobile or walking around. And even then, I find no enjoyment, and I'm like, why did I take this break? I have shit to do. And then when I'm on my laptop to play, something which was the only thing I used to look forward to at the end of the day a year ago, has now also become boring to me. I install games, then immediately uninstall them. My academics have fallen through the floor, my relationship with my parents has degraded, and I get more agitated at shit, and ugly self-talk is the norm. Though I can't explain this, I've had very stressful and bad situations, like almost failing a school year in 2018. But I have caring parents and some friends, and nothing traumatic has happened to me yet. Story 15. Hi, I'm a hypnotist based in Singapore, and this is a really awesome question. There are quite a few things I discovered in my line of work with my clients, so maybe I'll list just a few. Not only our parents' upbringing, but also how they interact with each other. The interesting thing about us as humans, generally speaking, is we learn about life from our parents. While we learn stuff that they taught us, we also learn from the words they say, the tonality, their interactions with each other, etc. And this becomes a part of us, how we think, speak, and behave, whether good or bad. Sickness is another interesting one, too. I had a few clients come to me with the question, can hypnosis heal their physical health issues? I'll normally ask first for their background, and interestingly enough, for one client, I told her I think that her huge anger led to her developing a stroke and constant body pain. A session of hypnosis to help her release her anger also healed her pain. Another lady with cervical cancer was because she was sexually abused by her father and uncle, and this led to her meeting men who only wanted sex, and she hates sex. Hence, her unconscious mind developed cervical cancer as a way to reduce sex. Another lady developed eczema when she was young because she was molested by her father. Her unconscious mind wanted to protect her by developing a skin condition because if she's pretty, daddy will touch her, hence, to top that, be ugly. These cases and more suggest our physical ailments might be linked to certain emotional issues. A money mindset. Most people think of money mindset as abundance or poverty, but people don't know that there are many things in it. I had a female entrepreneur once come to me thinking there was something wrong with her because she has failed in 5 businesses. Her dad was a huge success and her role model. After a bit of questioning, she shared how her dad achieved all the goals he set out, but before he could enjoy it, he died a few days later. Curious, I asked, is there a part of you that believes you will die once you achieve your goals? Shocked, she said, yes. There is a part of me that believes I will die if I succeed. That was it then, that this belief came about by seeing her dad's experience, success, and eventual death. Without realizing and resolving this, she might continue to think she has a fear of failure or she has the wrong money mindset or stuff. Story 16. A little different response, but still important. If anyone plays video games, browses social media, watches TV, or does any other form of electronic media for greater than 3 hours a day, days off work are exempt, then there is a high probability of an underlying issue causing the behavior. A true addiction to video games is estimated to only be 1 to 5% of people who are already playing 2, 3 plus hours daily. That means anyone else you think has an addiction actually has a high chance of comorbid disorders, and gaming is the outlet. This can be a ton of things, such as depression, anxiety, escapism, PTSD, extreme introversion, a lack of ambition or motivation, work stress, relationship stress, and so much more. Reach out to people you know who may sit in bed watching Netflix for hours, always on social media, or playing lots of games. Chances are extremely likely they don't do that because they are truly wanting to every day.